Hey guys, tonight we're taking a journey far from the romanticized image of Viking warriors. And instead, we're going to explore the often overlooked, yet truly brutal, reality of what it sucked to be a Viking farmer. Forget the long ships and the glory of battle. Picture endless fields, unforgiving weather, and a life of relentless, back-breaking toil. You're about to step into the muddy, frozen boots of someone whose daily survival depended entirely on the whims of nature and their own sheer grit. Honestly, you probably wouldn't last a single harvest season. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Now, tell me where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Here in Tai Bin, it's 8:05 p.m. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake up, not to the gentle glow of a lamp, but to the biting chill that seeps through the cracks in your turf house walls. It's still dark, long before dawn, and the air inside is thick with the smell of peat smoke, damp earth, and the lingering aroma of unwashed bodies. Your bed, a simple straw-filled pallet, offers little comfort against the cold that permeates everything. This isn't just a cold house, it's a constant, bone-deep chill that never truly leaves you in the long, dark Nordic winters. You rub your arms, trying to generate some warmth. Knowing that another day of relentless physical labor is about to begin, the idea of a heated home with central heating is a concept so utterly alien it would seem like magic. You live with the cold, you work in the cold, and you sleep in the cold. It's a bit like living inside a permanent, slightly damp refrigerator as you step outside. The landscape greets you with a stark, brutal beauty. This is the harsh land that dictates your entire existence. The soil is thin, rocky, and often acidic. A far cry from the rich, fertile plains you might imagine for farming. You stare out at your small fields, knowing that every inch of tillable land has been painstakingly cleared of stones, roots, and stubborn scrub. This wasn't land given freely, it was wrestled from the wilderness, inch by arduous inch. You might even still find the occasional ancient burial mound or sacred stone, a constant reminder that this land has been here long before you, and will be long after. The ground beneath your feet feels unyielding, a persistent challenge that demands every ounce of your effort. It's a land that gives reluctantly, and only to those who truly earn it through sweat and struggle. The growing season, particularly in the northern reaches of the Viking world like Norway or Iceland, is agonizingly short. You get perhaps 3, maybe 4 months of reliable warmth and daylight before the relentless cold and darkness return. This tiny window of opportunity means everything you do, plowing, sowing, weeding, harvesting, must be done with frantic urgency. There's no room for error, no time for delay. One late frost, one prolonged drought, or one unusually early snowfall can devastate your entire year's efforts, condemning your family to hunger or even starvation. You live with this constant, gnawing anxiety, a perpetual fear of the unpredictable forces of nature. Every cloud in the sky, every shift in the wind is watched with a farmer's desperate hope or creeping dread. Your crops are hardy, but limited, primarily. You're growing barley, oats, and rye, grains that can withstand the cooler climates and shorter seasons. Wheat is a luxury, rare and difficult to cultivate. These grains form the basis of your diet bread. Porridge and ale. Imagine a diet that is almost entirely grain-based, lacking the variety and nutrients you're accustomed to. Fresh vegetables are seasonal and rare, and fruits even more so. You crave fresh greens, but they are fleeting visitors to your table. It's a monotonous diet, designed for sustenance rather than pleasure, providing just enough energy to fuel your unending labor. The tools you use are simple, yet incredibly demanding. Your plow is often made of wood, perhaps tipped with iron, requiring immense strength to drag through the stubborn soil. There are no tractors, no mechanical assistance. It's just you, your family, and perhaps an ox or two, straining against the earth. You feel the pull in your shoulders, the ache in your lower back, the blisters forming on your hands. Every furrow you turn is a testament to raw human power and endurance. Sowing seeds is done by hand, scattering them across the prepared earth, hoping they find purchase. Harvesting is a back-breaking process of scything or reaping, bending over for hours under the often gloomy sky. Imagine repeating these motions, day after day, for weeks on end, knowing that every single kernel of grain represents the difference between survival and starvation. Even your shelter, the very home you return to, is a reflection of this harsh reality. Your turf house, common in many Viking settlements, is literally built from the earth itself. Thick walls of stacked sod provide insulation, but they also mean a dark, damp interior. The roof, often covered in grass, might leak during heavy rains, adding to the pervasive dampness. Smoke from the central hearth fills the air, providing warmth, but also coating everything in a fine layer of soot and irritating your lungs. There are few windows, if any, making the interior perpetually dim, lit only by the flickering firelight or the occasional oil lamp. It's a cramped, often smoky, and undeniably smelly space, shared with your family and often your livestock too. The sheep or goats might be brought inside during the coldest months, their body heat adding a little warmth, but also their odors and droppings adding to the general ambiance. It's a brutal truth that your living space is more a functional shelter than a comfortable home. The concept of a day off is practically non-existent. Your life is dictated by the sun, the seasons, and the endless needs of your farm. There are always animals to tend, fences to repair, fields to clear, and chores to complete. Even in winter, when the fields are frozen, there's animal fodder to gather, tools to mend, and wool to process. Your hands are perpetually calloused, your body constantly aching, and your mind always preoccupied with the next task, the next season, the next challenge. It's a life of relentless, unyielding physical exertion from dawn till dusk. Every single day. The Viking farmer's life truly did suck, in a way that modern agrarian life, for all its challenges, can barely comprehend. You're still there, feeling the persistent ache in your muscles and the raw chill of the Nordic air, as the meager light of dawn finally breaks through the smoky air of your turf house. Your mind immediately shifts to the most constant, terrifying companion of any Viking farmer, the specter of famine. This isn't just about going hungry for a day or two. It's about the very real possibility of slow, agonizing starvation for your entire family if the harvest fails. Imagine a bad harvest. Perhaps the summer was unusually cold and wet, or a sudden, unexpected frost wiped out a significant portion of your ripening grain. The sight of stunted, withered crops in your fields fills you with a dread so profound it settles deep in your bones. You know, instinctively, that this means less grain for bread, less fodder for your animals, and a long, lean winter stretching ahead. The difference between survival and utter destitution often hangs by a thread. There are no government subsidies, no food banks, no easy ways to acquire provisions if your own efforts fail. You are entirely at the mercy of the land and the weather. It's a bit like playing a high-stakes game of poker, where the cards are dealt by an indifferent, often cruel deity. Your diet, even in good times, is monotonous and barely sufficient. You eat porridge made from barley or oats, thick and bland, providing energy but little joy. Flatbreads, baked on a griddle over the fire, are your daily bread, dense and often gritty. Meat is a luxury, reserved for special occasions or when an animal needs to be culled. Most of your protein comes from fish, if you live near the coast or a good fishing river, or from dairy products like milk, cheese, and butter from your few cows or goats. Imagine a world where fresh fruits and vegetables are a rare treat, available only briefly in the short summer months. Your body aches for variety, for fresh greens, for something sweet. But those desires are constantly unmet. This lack of diverse nutrients leaves you vulnerable to various deficiencies and illnesses. Food storage is a constant challenge. Without refrigeration, you rely on ancient methods salting meat and fish, drying, smoking, and fermenting. Imagine the process of salting fish, gutting it, rubbing it generously with precious salt, then hanging it to dry in the often damp air. The process is laborious, and if not done perfectly, the food can still spoil, leading to waste and potential illness. Smoked meats hang from the rafters, perpetually coated in soot, their strong aroma mingling with the other smells of your home. These methods are effective for preservation but often leave the food incredibly tough, chewy and intensely flavored, far from the fresh, delicate tastes you're used to. The winter months are a particular ordeal. The growing season is long over, and you live entirely on your stored provisions. You carefully ration every handful of grain, every piece of dried meat, every chunk of cheese. The days are short, the nights long and bitterly cold. Your energy reserves dwindle, and your body grows thin. The children, especially, feel the pangs of hunger more acutely, their small bodies more vulnerable to the cold and lack of nourishment. You worry constantly about them, about making it through until the spring thaw, until the fields can be worked again. The silence of the long winter nights is often broken only by the gnawing of your own stomach, one of the more unique and desperate aspects of Viking farming during lean times was the use of tree bark flour. When grain harvests were insufficient, people would sometimes peel the inner bark of certain trees, dry it, grind it into a fine powder, and mix it with their meager grain supply to stretch it further. Imagine the taste of bread made partly from tree bark. It would be bitter, rough, and barely palatable. A stark symbol of how close to the edge of survival you constantly lived. It's a stark reminder that every available resource was exploited to simply stay alive. Livestock are vital, but also a tremendous drain on your resources. Your cows, sheep, and goats provide milk, wool, meat, and hides. But they also need to be fed and protected, especially during the winter. You spend countless hours gathering hay, cutting branches, and preparing fodder to keep them alive. If an animal dies unexpectedly from disease or accident, it's a catastrophic loss, impacting your family's food supply and wealth for months, if not longer. There's no veterinary care, no easy way to replace a lost animal. Every single animal on your farm is a precious commodity, its survival directly linked to your own. Historians still debate the optimal size of a Viking family farm in terms of livestock. Was it better to have fewer, healthier animals, or more? Knowing some might perish, it's a complex economic calculation for survival. Even hunting and fishing, while providing some supplemental food, are unreliable. Heck, you might spend hours setting traps or fishing lines, only to come back empty-handed. The energy expended in the hunt might outweigh the caloric gain, making it a risky endeavor. And while raiding, for some Vikings, provided an opportunity to acquire food and wealth from other lands. For the vast majority of Viking farmers, staying home and tending the land was their only option. The image of the fierce raider often overshadows the more common reality of the struggling farmer. So, as you open your refrigerator tonight and survey the abundant, diverse food choices, remember that for a Viking farmer, every meal was a hard-won victory, every full belly a temporary reprieve from the constant, gnawing fear of famine. It truly makes you appreciate the security of a well-stocked pantry. You're still existing within the tough confines of the Viking farmer's life, feeling the constant strain on your body and the gnawing anxiety about your next meal. Now, let's talk about the ultimate antagonist in this saga of survival, the weather's wrath. In the Norse lands, the climate isn't just a backdrop. It's a brutal, unpredictable force that holds your entire existence in its icy grip. Imagine the long, dark, and brutally cold winters. These aren't just a few chilly months, they are a significant portion of your year, stretching on for 5, 6, or even 7 months in some regions. The sun barely rises above the horizon for weeks on end, casting a perpetual twilight over the frozen landscape. Temperatures routinely plummet well below freezing, and blizzards can rage for days, trapping you indoors, cutting off your access to resources, and threatening the very lives of your livestock. You feel the cold in your bones, a constant ache that even the smoky peat fire in your home can't fully dispel. It's a bit like living inside a giant, poorly insulated freezer, where every breath you take turns to mist. The wind, particularly along the coastlines and in the open fields, is a relentless, howling force. It whips across the treeless plains, carrying snow and ice, biting at any exposed skin. You learn to hunch your shoulders, to pull your rough wool cloak tighter, to simply endure the constant buffeting. This wind isn't just uncomfortable, it steals warmth, makes outdoor work agonizing, and can drive snow into every crack and crevice of your fragile home. It's a constant, unseen adversary that tests your endurance daily. Then there's the short, often capricious summer. You long for its warmth, for the precious few months when the land thaws and the sun shines for almost 24 hours a day in the northernmost areas. But this fleeting warmth comes with its own dangers. A sudden, unexpected late frost in spring can wipe out newly sown seeds, forcing you to start all over again and severely shortening an already tight growing season. A prolonged drought in summer can wither your precious grain crops, turning lush green fields into brittle, yellowed stalks, condemning your family to potential starvation. Conversely, too much rain can lead to waterlogging, ruining root crops and making it impossible to harvest grains without them rotting. You live in a constant state of anxiety, watching the skies, trying to read the subtle signs of nature, knowing that your entire year's efforts can be undone by a single shift in the weather. The unpredictability is perhaps the most brutal aspect. There are no reliable long-range weather forecasts, no climate models to predict trends. You rely on generations of accumulated wisdom, on the signs passed down by your ancestors. But ultimately, the weather is a god, indifferent and powerful. One year might bring a bountiful harvest, the next, a devastating famine, all dictated by the capricious whims of nature. This constant uncertainty shapes your worldview, fostering a deep-seated fatalism and a profound respect, or perhaps fear, for the natural world. You learn not to make grand plans, but to focus on immediate survival. Think about the impact of the weather on your livestock. During winter, you have to house them indoors or in sheltered areas, consuming precious fodder you've painstakingly gathered. If the winter is unusually harsh or long, your stored fodder might run out, forcing you to slaughter animals you desperately need for breeding or future food. A sudden deep freeze can kill weaker animals outright. Your sheep, goats, and cows are not just possessions, they are your living capital, and their survival is intimately tied to your own. Losing an animal to the cold or lack of food is a devastating blow, far worse than a monetary loss in a modern economy. Even seemingly minor weather events can have major consequences. A sudden heavy snowfall in autumn can trap unharvested crops under the snow, ruining them. A severe storm can flatten fields, destroy fences, and damage your turf house, requiring immediate, grueling repairs. Your life is a continuous series of reactions to nature's unpredictable temper tantrums. You are constantly on guard, constantly adapting. Historians still debate the extent to which major climate shifts, like the medieval warm period or the Little Ice Age, influenced Viking migrations and agricultural practices. It's clear that even subtle changes in global climate had profound, often brutal, local impacts on these farmers. The weather also dictates your ability to travel and trade. Frozen fjords and snow-blocked mountain passes isolate communities for months. meaning you can't easily acquire goods or help from outside. You are largely self-sufficient, relying entirely on what your land and your community can produce. This isolation, while fostering strong communal bonds, also means that if your region suffers a particular hardship, you are often on your own. It adds another layer of vulnerability to your already precarious existence. So, as you adjust your thermostat or check the weather forecast on your phone, remember that for a Viking farmer, the weather was not a topic of casual conversation, but a relentless, powerful force that dictated every aspect of their grueling existence, a truly brutal and unforgiving master. It makes you profoundly grateful for central heating and climate-controlled environments. You're still there, living this life of grueling labor and biting cold. And now, let's shift our focus to the very heart of your livelihood, your animal companions. For a Viking farmer, livestock weren't just assets, they were a vital, breathing extension of your family's survival. Yet managing them was a constant, difficult, and often heartbreaking ordeal. Imagine your small herd of cows, sheep, goats, and perhaps a few pigs or chickens. These animals are your living bank account, your source of milk, cheese, wool, meat, hides, and even fertilizer. Every morning, regardless of the weather, you tend to them. You feel the cold seeping into your boots as you trudge through the mud or snow to their pens. You check on each animal, listening for their lowing or bleeding, scanning for any signs of illness or injury. A sick animal is a direct threat to your family's well-being. It's a bit like having all your savings in a very vulnerable, very hungry, and sometimes very smelly, living safe deposit box. Feeding your livestock, especially during the long, dark winters, is a monumental task. You spend countless hours in the short summer and autumn months gathering hay and fodder. This means scything wild grasses from meadows, often marshy and difficult to navigate, then drying them efficiently before the dampness spoils them. You might also collect tree branches and leaves for your goats and sheep to browse on. Imagine the sheer physical effort of cutting, raking, and hauling vast quantities of hay, storing it carefully in barns or haystacks, knowing that every single bundle represents the difference between your animals surviving the winter or starving. One common historical truth is that medieval Norse farmers had to be expert at preserving every possible scrap of animal feed to make it through the lean months. The vulnerability of your animals is a constant source of anxiety. There's no veterinary medicine as you know it if a cow gets sick. You might try a few folk remedies, some herbs, a prayer, but often, you just have to watch it suffer and hope for the best. Disease can sweep through your small herd, wiping out multiple animals in a short time, a catastrophic blow to your family's fortunes. Predators are another threat. Wolves, bears, and even smaller wild animals constantly stalk the edges of your farm. Looking for an easy meal? You spend nights huddled in your turf house, listening to the sounds outside, hoping your fences are strong enough, that your dog is alert, that your precious animals are safe. Then there's the process of calving, lambing, and farrowing. These are moments of both hope and dread. You watch over your pregnant animals, knowing that a successful birth means new life, new milk, new future generations for your farm. But you also know the risk stillbirths, mothers dying in labor, weak offspring that don't survive the first few days. You might spend a freezing night in the barn helping a struggling ewe, covered in muck and animal fluids, praying for a healthy outcome. It's a messy, often heartbreaking, but utterly essential part of your life. Your animals are also a source of warmth. Literally, during the harshest winter months, it's common to bring some of your smaller, more vulnerable livestock, like young calves, lambs, or chickens, directly into your turf house, sometimes even into a designated area within the living space. Their body heat helps to warm the cramped interior, but their presence also adds to the pervasive smell, the constant noise, and the added chore of mucking out their stalls within your home. Imagine trying to sleep with the sounds of chewing and shifting animals just a few feet away, and the distinct aroma of manure permeating your living space. It's a stark reminder of the close, often unsentimental, relationship you have with your animals, where their warmth is as vital as their milk. Shearing sheep for wool is another laborious annual task. You have to catch each sheep, hold it still, and carefully clip its fleece using simple shears. It's slow, tiring work, and you risk cutting the animal or yourself. But the wool is invaluable. It provides the raw material for the ruff, warm clothing that protects you from the brutal Nordic elements. You then have to clean, card, spin, and weave this wool, often by hand, into usable fabric. It's a truly full circle experience, from the animal's back to your own. Even the animal waste, which seems like a problem, is a precious resource. Manure is painstakingly collected and spread on your fields as fertilizer, returning vital nutrients to the thin soil. This cyclical use of resources means that nothing is truly wasted. But it also means constant contact with animal excrement. With all the hygiene implications we've discussed, you might think of it as medieval recycling, but it's a dirty, smelly business. Historians still debate the specific techniques Viking farmers used to maximize the fertility of their challenging soil. Was it crop rotation, strategic manuring, or a combination of various methods that allowed them to sustain their settlements for centuries? The ingenuity of their agricultural practices in such a harsh environment is truly remarkable. So, as you watch a nature documentary about happy farm animals, or casually buy a carton of milk from the grocery store, remember that for a Viking farmer, every animal was a precious, vulnerable, and demanding companion, a living gamble against famine and the elements. It truly makes you appreciate the distance between your food source and your living room. You're still entrenched in the Viking farmer's rugged existence. Your hands calloused, your body weary from the endless demands of the land and animals. Now, let's consider the fundamental challenge of getting things done, the primitive tools and technology at your disposal. Forget the automated machinery and power tools of today. Every task, from tilling the soil to building your home, is a testament to brute force, ingenuity, and painstaking labor. Imagine your most essential farming implement, the ard, or scratch plow. This isn't the moldboard plow you might imagine. Turning over deep furrows, the ard is a simple wooden tool, sometimes tipped with iron, designed to scratch a shallow groove in the soil. You hitch an ox or two to it, or sometimes it's simply you and another family member straining to pull it through the rocky earth. You feel the resistance of the soil, the way the ard snags on stones and roots. Every pass is a physical battle, requiring immense strength and endurance. It's a bit like trying to dig a garden bed with a stick, endlessly repeating the motion to prepare enough ground for your precious seeds. This shallow tilling means the soil isn't deeply aerated or turned over, which limits its fertility and requires constant effort to maintain. One common historical truth is that the ARD was primarily effective in lighter soils, making farming in the heavy, clay-rich lands of Europe a far more arduous task before the advent of more advanced plows. Sowing your seeds is done by hand, a methodical scattering across the prepared soil. There's no precision planting, no drills to ensure even distribution. You walk your fields, broadcasting the precious kernels, hoping for an even spread. Then, you might drag a simple harrow, a branch or a frame with pegs, over the ground to lightly cover the seeds, or simply rely on the rain and birds to do their part. It's a low-tech, high-risk endeavor, where much can go wrong between sowing and sprouting. Harvesting is another incredibly labor-intensive task. When your barley and oats ripen, you grab your sickle or scythe. The sickle, a small curved blade, requires you to bend over for hours, grasping handfuls of grain stalks and cutting them one by one. The scythe, a longer blade on a handle, allows you to stand, but demands incredible skill and rhythm to wield effectively without injuring yourself. Imagine spending days, even weeks, under the often gloomy Nordic sky, painstakingly cutting down every single stalk of grain, Your back aches, your hands cramp, and the repetitive motion grinds at your body. Every swing of the blade, every bundle of grain tied, is a direct contribution to your family's survival through the coming winter. Processing the harvested grain is equally demanding. You need to thresh it to separate the kernels from the stalks. This often involves beating the bundles of grain with a flail, a long stick with a hinged second piece that swings down, or simply trampling it with animals or your own feet. Then comes winnowing, tossing the threshed grain into the air on a windy day, allowing the lighter chaff to blow away while the heavier kernels fall back down. This is an imperfect science, reliant on the unpredictable wind, and some precious grain is always lost. Finally, the kernels must be ground into flour using a quern, a simple hand mill made of two circular stones. Imagine the endless hours spent turning the upper stone, feeling the grit and dust, knowing that every spoonful of flour represents immense effort. It's a truly visceral connection to your food, from field to plate, beyond farming. Construction relies on equally basic tools. Your turf house is built using turf blocks, cut from the earth with a simple spade. Wood for frames and roofs is felled with axes and shaped with adzes, tools that demand powerful swings and precise control. There are no saws as you know them, no power drills. Every joint is carefully carved. Every beam is painstakingly shaped by hand. The effort involved in building even a modest dwelling is enormous, often a communal undertaking that strengthens bonds but exhausts bodies. Metal tools, while incredibly valuable, are rare and often crudely made. Your axe might be your most prized possession, used for felling trees, splitting wood, and even defense. Sharpening it is a constant chore, done with whetstones, blacksmiths. When available, are highly skilled and essential members of the community, but their work is expensive and slow. Imagine the frustration of a broken tool in the middle of a crucial task, knowing that repair might take days or be impossible. Even the simple act of transportation relies on basic technology. Carts, if you have them, are heavy, wooden, and often pulled by oxen. You navigate rough tracks, not paved roads, making every journey slow and arduous. If you're transporting goods by water, you rely on simple boats, rowed or sailed, requiring immense physical effort and exposing you to the elements. There are no engines, no rapid transport. Every journey is an adventure, a physical challenge, one fascinating, albeit less common. Detail is the use of skiing for transport in some northern regions, showcasing their adaptation to the terrain. While not a farming tool, it reflects their innovative approach to movement. The lack of advanced technology also means a constant battle against the elements and disease. Without proper sanitation tools, the filth accumulates. Without efficient heating systems, the cold penetrates. Without advanced medical instruments, illnesses become deadly. Your ingenuity is constantly tested, finding makeshift solutions with limited resources. Historians still debate the extent of technological transfer between Viking societies and other cultures. Did they adopt new tools from their raiding and trading? Or were their innovations primarily homegrown adaptations to their unique environment? It's clear they were pragmatic, adopting what worked. So, as you glance at your smartphone or step into your climate-controlled home, remember that for a Viking farmer, every comfort, every meal, and every shelter was built, grown, and sustained by an incredible amount of sheer physical effort, using tools that demanded respect for their simplicity and the monumental labor they represented. It truly makes you appreciate the push of a button and the roar of an engine. You're still in the brutal rhythm of the Viking farmer's life, constantly battling the elements and the stubborn land. Now, let's confront one of the most insidious threats to your survival: sickness and the sheer lack of effective remedies. Forget the sterile hospitals and miracle cures of modern medicine. In your time, illness is a mysterious, terrifying force. And often, death is simply an inevitable outcome. Imagine waking up with a fever, a racking cough, or a searing pain in your gut. Your first thought isn't to consult a doctor because, for most, formal medical professionals are non-existent. Instead, you rely on folk remedies and traditional knowledge, passed down through generations. You might try an herbal concoction, perhaps a bitter tea brewed from local plants, or a poultice applied to a wound. You believe in the power of certain roots, leaves, or even animal parts to ward off illness or bring about healing. But these remedies are often based on superstition or trial and error, with little understanding of the actual cause of disease. It's a bit like trying to fix a complex engine with a handful of random wrenches. You might get lucky, but more often, you'll just make things worse. Infections are a constant, terrifying threat. A simple cut from a farming tool, a scrape from a thorn, or even an insect bite can quickly fester and turn deadly. Without antibiotics or even basic antiseptic understanding, a minor wound can lead to a raging infection, gangrene, and eventually, death. You watch helplessly as a loved one's limb swells, turns black, and emits a foul odor, knowing there's nothing you can truly do. Amputations, when performed, are brutal, excruciating procedures, done without anesthesia by someone with rudimentary tools, and often lead to further infection and death. The pain, the sheer agony of such a procedure is almost unimaginable. Childbirth is another high-stakes gamble. For Viking women, each pregnancy is a perilous journey. With high mortality rates for both mother and infant, the birthing environment is rarely hygienic, and infections after childbirth are common. You might lose a sister, a wife, or a daughter in labor. A tragedy that is sadly common and accepted as part of life's harsh reality. Infant mortality is staggeringly high. Many children don't survive their first few years, succumbing to fevers, dysentery, or malnutrition. You learn to steel yourself against grief, to accept that not every child will live to adulthood. The diet, as we discussed, is often monotonous and can lead to various nutritional deficiencies. A lack of fresh fruits and vegetables, especially in winter, can result in conditions like scurvy, weakening your body and making you more susceptible to other illnesses. Malnutrition is a silent killer, slowly eroding your strength and resilience. You might experience chronic fatigue, dull aches, and a general malaise that you simply attribute to the hardships of life. Unaware that your diet is a major contributor, parasites are an omnipresent companion. Lice, fleas, and intestinal worms are simply a part of life, causing constant itching, discomfort, and further weakening your body. You might attempt to delouse yourself or your children with fine-toothed combs, but eradication is impossible. Imagine the constant irritation, the restless nights, and the subtle drain on your health from these unseen invaders, the lack of proper sanitation, the sharing of living spaces with animals, and the contaminated food and water all contribute to this pervasive parasitic burden. Even simple dental issues become agonizing. There are no dentists, no pain relief beyond crude herbal remedies. A toothache can last for weeks, driving you to distraction. An abscessed tooth can lead to a serious infection, spreading to your jaw or even your brain, often proving fatal. You simply endure the pain, knowing that eventually the tooth will fall out or you will succumb to the infection. Your smile, if you have one, is likely missing several teeth. A common badge of honor for surviving into adulthood. Epidemics, though perhaps less frequent than in densely packed medieval cities, can still decimate isolated Viking communities. A new disease introduced through trade or returning raiders could spread rapidly through a small, interconnected settlement, with no understanding of contagion to stem its tide. You live with the constant fear of a sudden illness sweeping through your family, knowing that there is little to be done but quarantine the sick and pray. This isn't just a fear of getting sick, it's a fear of an entire community being wiped out. Historians still debate the specific diseases that most impacted Viking populations, while sagas mention mysterious plagues. Pinpointing their exact nature can be challenging. So, as you reach for your pain relievers, your bandages, or your multivitamins tonight. Remember that for a Viking farmer, sickness was a brutal, often fatal. Lottery? Every day of health was a blessing, and every illness a desperate struggle against forces they could neither understand nor effectively combat. It truly makes you appreciate the marvels of modern medicine. You're still breathing the crisp, often harsh, air of the Viking Age. And now let's consider the social fabric that either sustained or strained you, the social burdens of family and communal expectations. For a Viking farmer, your existence wasn't just about your individual struggle. It was deeply intertwined with your family, your neighbors, and the wider community, bringing both essential support and relentless pressure. Imagine your family. It's not just a small unit of parents and children. It's likely an extended household, perhaps including grandparents, unmarried aunts or uncles, and even adult siblings and their families. Everyone has a role, and everyone is expected to contribute to the farm's survival. The elderly might care for the young, spin wool, or mend tools. Children, from a surprisingly young age, are tasked with chores collecting firewood, tending to smaller animals, or helping in the fields during harvest. There's no concept of childhood leisure as you know it. Every pair of hands is valuable. Every contribution essential for the collective survival. It's a bit like running a small, self-sufficient corporation where everyone is an unpaid intern, working from dawn till dusk. The division of labor is clear, though often grueling for all. As a man, your primary duties involve the heavy fieldwork plowing, sowing, harvesting, clearing land, and caring for the larger livestock. You might also be responsible for hunting, fishing, and repairing tools and structures. As a woman, your work is equally relentless, often centered around the homestead milking cows, making cheese and butter, spinning wool, weaving cloth, preparing all the food, tending to the children, and managing the household stores. You both work tirelessly, from dawn until dusk, every single day, with little distinction between work and life. There are no weekends, no holidays, just the endless cycle of the seasons and the demands of the farm. Marriage isn't primarily about romantic love, but about forging alliances and securing labor for the farm. Your spouse is your partner in survival, a co-worker in the truest sense. A good marriage means two strong, capable individuals working together to ensure the farm's prosperity. Children are desired, not just for continuation of the family line, but as future laborers who will help sustain the farm as you age. The pressure to produce offspring, especially sons, to carry on the family name and work the land, can be immense. The community itself is a vital safety net, but also a source of obligation. Your neighbors are your closest allies. You might pool resources for larger tasks, like building a new longhouse, or share labor during peak seasons like harvest. If your family suffers a bad harvest, your neighbors might offer some support, but this comes with an implicit understanding that you will reciprocate in kind when they need help. There's no formal welfare system. Mutual aid is the only form of insurance you have. This strong interdependence means that reputation matters immensely. You want to be seen as hardworking, reliable, and honorable, because your standing in the community directly impacts your family's chances of survival. However, this tight-knit community also comes with its own set of social pressures and expectations. Everyone knows everyone else's business. Your successes and failures are public knowledge. If your crops fail, if your animals sicken, if your family struggles, it's not a private affair. There's a constant, unspoken pressure to conform, to pull your weight, and to contribute to the collective good. Gossip and social ostracism can be powerful forces, often more effective than formal laws. Imagine living in a small village where everyone knows everything about you, and your reputation is your currency. It's a bit like living in a constant reality show, but with much higher stakes. Legal disputes, while rare, would often be settled at the Thing Assembly, where communal consensus and the judgment of your peers held sway. If you had a grievance with a neighbor, you'd bring it before the community, and their decision would be binding. This system, while seemingly democratic, could also be heavily influenced by social standing and reputation. Maintaining good relationships within your community was paramount, as isolation could mean disaster during times of hardship. Historians still debate the true extent of democratic participation in Viking things. Were they truly egalitarian? Or did powerful chieftains and landowners hold disproportionate sway? The balance between individual rights and communal obligations is a complex aspect of their society. The presence of thrall slaves, while not universal, was a grim reality in some Viking households. If your farm was successful enough, you might acquire thralls through trade or raids. These individuals, often captured from other lands, performed the most arduous and undesirable tasks, freeing your family members for other duties while their labor eased your burden. Managing thralls came with its own set of ethical and practical challenges. Their lives were brutal, and their presence highlights the deep social hierarchies of the time. So, as you enjoy the privacy and personal freedom of your modern life, remember that for a Viking farmer, every decision, every action, and every struggle was viewed through the lens of family and communal obligation. Your life was not entirely your own. It was a testament to the power and pressure of the collective, a system that both sustained and constrained you. You're still deep in the Viking farmer's rugged world, feeling the weight of your social obligations and the unyielding demands of the land. Now, let's confront a stark choice that faced many in this era: to raid or to remain. For some, the allure of raiding offered an escape from the relentless grind of farming, a chance for wealth, glory, and even a temporary respite from the drudgery. But for the vast majority, remaining on the farm was their inescapable and often brutal reality. Imagine the stories that would filter back to your isolated farming community: tales of longships gliding through the waves, of distant lands plundered, of silver and gold acquired through daring raids. You might hear of fertile lands across the sea, untouched by the harsh Nordic climate, or of wealthy monasteries ripe for the taking for a young, restless man. This could be an intoxicating prospect, a chance to escape the endless cycle of planting, harvesting, and livestock tending. The promise of immediate wealth, or at least a change of pace, was a powerful siren song against the monotonous backdrop of farm life. It's a bit like seeing a flashy advertisement for a get-rich-quick scheme when you're struggling to make ends meet. Incredibly tempting, even if incredibly risky. However, for most Viking farmers, the idea of abandoning their land for a raiding expedition was simply not an option. Your farm, small and demanding as it was, represented your family's entire security. It was the land your ancestors had cleared, the land that sustained your children. To leave it, even for a season, meant risking its neglect, its potential loss, and the certain hardship for those left behind. Who would tend the fields? Who would care for the animals? The vast majority of Viking men, and certainly all women and children, remained tied to the land, their lives dictated by the seasons, not by the promise of plunder. The decision to raid was not taken lightly. Even by those who pursued it, it was incredibly risky. You could die in battle, drown in a storm at sea, or return empty-handed, even if you survived and brought back wealth. It was often at a terrible cost, leaving behind grieving families or suffering severe injuries. For the farmer, these risks far outweighed the potential rewards. Your life was already a constant gamble against nature. Adding the gamble of warfare was simply too much for most. You might see a few of the younger, unmarried men from your village depart on such voyages, watching them go with a mixture of envy and quiet relief that you were staying safe. Even if poor, consider the economic realities. Farming, though brutal, provided a consistent, albeit meager, livelihood. You knew what to expect. And while times could be hard, you had a tangible connection to your sustenance. Raiding, on the other hand, was an unpredictable lottery. One successful raid might set you up for life, but many more might yield nothing or result in catastrophic loss. For a family dependent on the consistent output of their land, this unpredictability was simply too great a risk to bear. Your survival depended on steady, predictable effort, not on speculative violence. Historians still debate the precise proportion of the Viking population involved in raiding. While the sagas and archaeological evidence highlight the warriors, it's generally accepted that the vast majority were farmers, fishermen, and craftsmen, supporting the relatively small elite of raiders and traders. Even for those who did raid, the spoils were not always easily converted into a comfortable life back home. Gold and silver needed to be melted down, traded for goods, or used to acquire land. More practically, captured slaves or goods might be useful, but they didn't replace the fundamental need for food grown from your own soil. A farmer needed land, seeds, tools, and livestock. Plunder could supplement this, but rarely replace it entirely. It's a truth that wealth, without the means of production, is fleeting. The culture also played a role. While valor in battle was celebrated, so too was the ability to manage a successful farm and provide for one's family. A skilled farmer, who consistently brought in good harvests and maintained healthy livestock, earned respect within the community, perhaps as much as a successful warrior. Your pride came from the sweat of your brow, from seeing your fields flourish, and your family fed, rather than from the plunder of foreign lands. It's a more understated form of heroism, but no less vital. No. So, as you watch a historical drama glorifying Viking warriors, remember that for every longship setting sail, there were thousands of men and women back home, bent over their plows, tending their animals, and simply trying to survive the unforgiving seasons. Their choice, to remain and endure, was not glamorous, but it was the bedrock of Viking society, a constant, brutal testament to resilience. It truly makes you appreciate the stability of your modern career choice. Whatever it may be, you're still deep in the daily grind of the Viking farmer. Having explored the harsh realities of the land, the unending toil, the constant threat of famine, and the difficult choices faced, now, let's consider the deeper, more enduring aspect of this life, the legacy of resilience. For all its brutality and hardship, the Viking farmer's existence wasn't just about suffering, it was about an incredible, unwavering ability to adapt, innovate, and endure against overwhelming odds. Imagine the sheer human will required to wake up every single day, year after year, to face such an unforgiving environment. Despite thin soils, short growing seasons, and unpredictable weather, Viking farmers managed to cultivate enough food to sustain settlements for centuries. This wasn't by chance. It was due to an astonishing level of ingenuity and adaptation. They developed hardy strains of barley and oats, perfectly suited to their climate. They understood the subtle rhythms of the land, knowing when to plant, when to harvest, and how to maximize every precious ray of sunlight. It's a bit like a master chess player, constantly anticipating the next move of a powerful, unseen opponent nature, and finding a way to survive and even thrive. Their approach to resource management was remarkably sophisticated. Born out of necessity, every part of an animal was used: meat for food, hides for clothing and shelter, bones for tools, horns for drinking vessels, and even intestines for sewing thread. Nothing was wasted. Manure was painstakingly collected to fertilize the fields, creating a closed-loop system of sustainability that was far ahead of its time in terms of ecological awareness. Even if driven by pure survival, this level of resourcefulness teaches you that true wealth isn't just about accumulation, but about maximizing what you have. The community bonds forged through shared hardship were incredibly strong. Remember how neighbors would help each other during harvest, or when a new house needed building. This wasn't just neighborliness, it was a fundamental survival strategy. The knowledge that you weren't alone, that there was a network of mutual support, even if unspoken, provided a crucial psychological buffer against the crushing weight of individual struggle. It highlights a common historical truth in harsh environments. Collective effort often trumps individual ambition for sheer survival. The sagas often depict fierce individualism, but the reality of daily farm life demanded deep interdependence. Their resilience was also evident in their ability to adapt their farming practices across diverse landscapes, from the fjords of Norway to the more temperate lands of Denmark, and even the challenging, volcanic soil of Iceland. Viking farmers innovated. They developed specialized irrigation techniques in some areas, built sophisticated drainage systems in others, and mastered the art of rotational grazing for their livestock. This flexibility, this refusal to be defeated by environmental constraints, is a profound testament to their enduring spirit. It's a lesson in problem solving under extreme pressure, where every solution was literally a matter of life and death, the very nature of their tools, while primitive by our standards, also speaks to their resilience. The ard, the scythe, the hand quern, these were not just implements, they were extensions of their tireless bodies. Using them required immense physical strength, but also a deep, intuitive understanding of their capabilities and limitations. They maintained and repaired these tools with meticulous care, knowing that a broken plowshare could mean a ruined harvest. This practical, hands-on relationship with their tools fostered a sense of self-reliance and mastery over their immediate environment. Historians still debate the specific innovations in Viking Age agriculture that allowed them to colonize and sustain communities in challenging new lands like Iceland and Greenland. Was it unique crop varieties, specialized livestock management, or a superior understanding of soil fertility compared to other contemporaneous cultures? It's a fascinating area of ongoing research. The mental fortitude required to live this life cannot be overstated. The constant anxiety of crop failure, the pervasive cold, the back-breaking labor, these would break a less resilient spirit. Yet, Viking farmers endured, found joy in small victories, and continued to plan for the next season, the next year. This long-term perspective, born of a deep connection to the land and the cyclical nature of life, fostered an incredible capacity for patience and perseverance. They understood that suffering was temporary, but the land and the family's legacy endured. So, as you face your own daily challenges, perhaps a stubborn task at work or a difficult personal decision, remember the Viking farmer. Their life was a constant, brutal testament to human resilience, an unwavering spirit that faced down famine, forged bonds in hardship, and turned an unforgiving land into a home. It truly makes you appreciate the enduring strength of the human spirit. You've delved deep into the unforgiving world of the Viking farmer, understanding the daily struggles, the brutal climate, and the sheer resilience required for survival. Now, as our journey nears its close, let's consider the enduring impact of their struggles. How the lives of these hardy agrarian people, often overshadowed by the glory of raiders, laid the fundamental groundwork for future societies and left a profound mark on history. Imagine looking at the modern agricultural landscape of Scandinavia, or even parts of North America where Norse descendants settled. The very act of farming in challenging northern climates owes a debt to the Viking farmer. Their tireless efforts in clearing land, adapting crops, and managing livestock in difficult conditions provided crucial knowledge and techniques that were passed down through generations. The understanding of soil, the rhythms of the short-growing season, the art of preserving food, these weren't just skills for survival. They were a foundation of agricultural wisdom that continued to evolve and sustain communities long after the Viking Age ended. It's a bit like building a skyscraper on a solid, unseen foundation. You don't always notice it, but without it, nothing else stands. The ingenuity born of necessity in Viking farming also left a lasting legacy. Think of their methods for preserving food salting, smoking, drying, while rudimentary. These techniques were highly effective and continued to be essential long into the modern era, predating refrigeration by centuries. The simple, yet effective, designs of their plows and hand tools, refined over generations, influenced agricultural implements for centuries across Europe. Their ability to make the most of every resource, to waste nothing, is a testament to sustainable living that resonates even today in discussions about environmental responsibility. This wasn't eco-consciousness, it was simply pragmatism in a world of scarcity. A hard-learned lesson about living within nature's limits. The social structures that developed around Viking farming communities also had a significant impact. The emphasis on the family unit as the primary economic and social entity, the strong bonds of mutual aid within communities, and the importance of reputation and communal justice. Remember, the thing created a stable, if harsh, societal framework. These foundational elements of self-reliance and community support continued to shape rural life in Nordic countries for many centuries, contributing to a distinctive cultural identity where independence and collective responsibility often went hand in hand. Historians still debate the specific influence of Norse communal structures on later European legal and social systems, with some arguing for direct lines of influence in areas like local governance and land tenure. Even the exploration and settlement of new lands by the Vikings, often seen as the domain of raiders, was fundamentally underpinned by the farmers' need for new opportunities. The search for more fertile land, for pastures that could support larger herds, drove many migrations to places like Iceland and Greenland. These were not just warrior outposts, they were farming settlements, dependent on the arduous work of tilling soil and tending animals in even more challenging environments. The ability to establish sustained agricultural communities in these remote locations is a profound testament to the Viking farmers' resilience and adaptability, demonstrating that even the most adventurous expeditions ultimately relied on the most basic human need for sustenance. The often overlooked peaceful aspects of Viking society, the trade, the settlement, the craftwork, were all built upon the stable base provided by the farming majority. While the raids grabbed the headlines, it was the steady work of the farmers that allowed Viking society to function, to grow, and to eventually integrate into the wider European world. Their sustained agricultural output provided the food and resources that supported the warriors, the artisans, and the traders, proving that the silent, enduring effort of the farmer was as crucial, if not more so, than the fleeting glory of the battlefield. It's a historical truth that the vast majority of Viking-age people were engaged in agriculture, providing the necessary stability for the more dramatic activities of raiding and exploration. So, as you reflect on the Viking Age, remember that beyond the images of horned helmets and longships lay a vast, unsung population of farmers, their daily struggles, their unwavering resilience, and their profound connection to the land created a lasting legacy. They taught us invaluable lessons about survival, resourcefulness, and the enduring power of human perseverance in the face of overwhelming odds. Their story reminds us that true strength often lies not in conquest, but in the quiet, persistent effort to nurture life from the earth.